Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is Drew Nowak, founder of Freedom Green. How you doing today, Drew?
I'm great, David. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really happy you could join us. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Drew, I always like to learn a little bit about every individual's personal journey to cannabis. So what was it that helped you get your start in the cannabis industry?
Yeah, so before cannabis, I was a professional athlete. I played in the NFL for almost 5 seasons. And really the pursuit was trying to find something that made me feel the same way that football did, to wake up every day to have that competition, that feeling of I can't wait to get to work. And so I got done playing, got my engineering degree, went to work in steel manufacturing industry and just kind of wanted more.
Okay.
So I had a conversation with a few friends of mine and talked about the new and up and coming industry in Michigan. You know, we had the old caregiver system, but the new licensed system. And so I was like, you know, why not? Let's do it. Let's try this opportunity. And never growing a plant before in my life, never really even seen living growing plants when making that decision. And it was a 2.5-year process from talking to consultants, seeing facilities, kind of trying to make the decisions ourselves, what worked and what didn't, and creating a game plan to begin finding property, the build process, pre-qualification through Michigan to operation. And now we've been around for it'll be 4 years in August.
What was that initial fact-finding process like? I mean, like 2.5 years working with consultants and other experts. I mean, I understand how, a lot of times when you have an idea and you want to start a business, you want to get it rolling. So like, how were you able to stay patient and sort of make sure you were doing things right?
Oh, I was not patient at all. Yeah, I have my dad to thank. He owned a steel manufacturing business, and he was a huge mentor throughout the process. And his real big emphasis was we need to make sure that we're making the right decisions at the right time, and not just jumping into an opportunity because we think it's fun or think it's cool, or the green rush. We want to make sure we did it right. It's about building that foundation, and I think that time that we took, as much as I wish we would be able to capture some of that early market sales in Michigan, I think it was probably the best thing for us to take our time and really make the correct plans for us to build that foundation that we're operating on today.
How does cannabis fill that competitive need that you seem to have that burns deep in your soul?
I think in Michigan, especially, and maybe you can say in other states, it's probably the most competitive industry out there. There's thousands of licenses, whether you're a cultivator, processor, retailer. And so you're always dealing with that other group, whether they're bigger, they're smaller, the quality is better, they're testing better. There's so many different factors, but also it's that, I never had that experience. So every day I was learning something new. I was learning how equipment worked. I was learning, what the plant was telling us, how the plant was responding to the light intensity, how we were watering, our environmentals, all those things. And that was stressful, but also, super fulfilling to kind of go through all those trials and to kind of get us to where we are today.
After 4 years, are you happy with where you're at now?
Yeah, I would say we're very, very close to hitting the metrics that I thought that we could hit from day one. We've changed a lot of our processes. We've brought in, I wouldn't say like, a bunch of crazy experienced people, but we brought in the right people. I say these 4 things when I interview folks. It's not even experience related. It's, do you have a positive attitude, a willingness to work? Can you be a part of a team, and can I rely on you? And if you can do those 4 things, those people have been the most successful in our facility. We do all teamwork. Everything is teaming up. We defoliate together. We harvest together. All the things we do is team oriented. So we kind of create like a fun environment. And having a team background, playing professional sports, when everybody's working together, we're able to accomplish that much more. And so the culture has been super important to our success as well.
Right? You can't train work ethic.
Right, 100%.
What were some of those processes that you've had to scrap along the way? Do you have any sort of anything that comes top of mind when you think of, where you had to pivot as a business and change direction?
Yeah, so early on, we watered a lot just based on, what we felt, right? And then over the last 12 months, we've used GrowLink with moisture meters in our pots, and basically, been able to crop steer, if you want to call it that. So we've been able to listen to the plants and determine our irrigation strategy based on how the plants are feeding. So that has really taken us to the next level of treating our plants. I like to say our plants are like our professional athletes.
Okay.
So they got to eat right, they got to sleep right, they got to drink right, we got to do all the things right for them, for us to make sure we get the most out of that 60 to 65 day cycle.
Okay.
I would say also secondarily our process improvement. So we harvest a room. We have 500 plants per flower room. We harvest it by noon on that working day. We begin cleaning it. The second day we finish cleaning, move plants in, we flip the room. So it's really like a 36-hour flip. So it's about getting plants back in the room and getting them back on a flower schedule. So we're maximizing our production or our number of harvests per year. That has increased over our period of time. Also, we started around the 31, 32 harvest a year mark, and now we're at 35, 36. So that's, tremendous amount of increase in cash flow for our business.
How big is your grow room?
So we have 6 flower rooms. They're each 1,400 square feet, but it's 1,600 square feet of canopy because it's a 2-tiered system.
Okay. One thing that I found interesting is that you describe it as blue collar cannabis. What do you mean by that?
I like to say we're just regular people growing weed.
Okay.
So a lot of our employees came from the manufacturing background. A lot of blue collar individuals. We live in the Midwest. It's blue collar America. Very very pro America, pro Midwest. And so a lot of our people are just hardworking folks, and we just want to produce the highest quality flower, doing it the right way with the right people.
Okay. I also noticed that sustainability is particularly important to you. What are some of the sustainability initiatives that you've put in place?
Yeah, so I say the biggest one would be our water reclaim system. So we're able to reuse about 1,000 gallons of water a day in our grow room. So that's super, super valuable for us to obviously save on water consumption, but also to reclean it and reuse it.
What was it like installing that water reclamation system? Was it difficult kind of making the switch?
No, honestly, it's fairly simplistic. We have basically a drain at the bottom of our HVAC unit, and the water drains into a little reservoir that has a pump, and it pumps the water up to above the room and then back to a holding tank. So it's actually a fairly simplistic system, and to be able to reuse 1,000 gallons of water a day, that's a lot of water.
So I really liked how you say you treat the business like working like with family. But as many of us know that have worked with family, sometimes it doesn't always go great. So have you had any problems running your business like a family?
Yeah, I would say, we've had, I think a lot of cannabis companies or startups could say they have a lot of turnover, but so we've had turnover over our years. But I think it's because we've been trying to find the people with the right mindset, the same mindset, the similar mindset of, how we want things to be done, and they're doing things the right way. I believe in the plant. I believe in what it does, what it does and can do for people. But this is also a business too. So I want it to be fun, and I want to create a fun environment, but also it's work, it's farming. So we have to kind of separate that a little bit. And I feel like the industry has maybe struggle with that, legitimizing the actual work that needs to get done while we're here. And it's expensive business to operate.
Well, turnover is an incredible issue for a lot of cannabis operators throughout the U.S. Do you do anything in particular for employee retention that you've found successful in terms of keeping your high performers on staff?
Yeah, so I mean, we pay a competitive wage based on our location, state of Michigan, for all positions. We also provide health benefits, so we cover 75% of health, dental, vision, and then a life insurance policy for all of our employees. So I would say that helps us. We are able in Michigan to provide samples, trade samples for our employees. So that's a monthly deal where we're giving, an eighth to an ounce, depending on the month, or maybe there's a great day where it's a awesome performance day where our trimmers did 50 pounds in a day. Everybody gets a free pre-roll or something fun like that. We also do meals where we cater in food or do potlucks in the facility once a month. So it's just about, again, creating that environment, that culture that people want to be around and want to be a part of. So I feel like that has helped us to keep the good people and to build on what we have.
I heard you describe your grow as craft cannabis at scale. What do you mean by that?
Well, personally, I think producing 500 pounds a month is a decent size facility. I'd say maybe mid-tier. But the way our rooms are set up, they're kind of just big enough where we can control every aspect of the quality of the production. Our environmental systems are tight. We don't. It doesn't go between 3% or 3 degrees, so we're never seeing big swings in temperature and humidity, which is great. There's tremendous amount of care when we're working on the plants, and then on the backside, we hand trim all of our flower. So we're making sure that every piece gets touched just enough for that end user. I believe that the look of the flower matters, and based on the size of what we are, we're able to hit every piece and to make sure that last quality control aspect is recognized by the end consumer.
Did you have a personal relationship with the plant prior to starting the business?
So I grew up in a fairly conservative household, so cannabis really wasn't a part of my life. But when I was playing in the NFL, I lived out in Seattle. That was my first kind of experience with it. I was able to begin using edibles for pain management. Obviously, football is pretty strenuous on your body. I really wasn't trying to be a part of the prescription medications scene. It's fairly readable and easy access in the NFL. And so cannabis was kind of my first experience of like, hey, I'm going to take care of my body and do it the right way. And so that was 2015, 2016, where that was my first real like, okay, this is some pretty good stuff. I'm seeing the benefits physically. I believe in the plant.
Were you supported by, NFL, I guess, not doctors, but were you supported in terms of the way you treated your body versus what they did traditionally?
Well, I think in the NFL, there is obviously the street drug testing, and so you do have to go through that process. But after that fact, you pass the testing. It's a one time of year test, so it's pretty readily acceptable throughout the NFL that guys are consuming cannabis for pain management. Now you're not really announcing it to the teams. You're not saying like, hey, I smoke weed, but it's understood within the players that this is a way for us to recover, to feel better, to not be reliant on prescription medication.
So do you see freedom as more of as both recreational and medical? Like at the end of the day, do you feel like, your grow is responsible for bringing relief to your patients and customers?
I think so. I think the quality that we provide is medical quality, if you want to call it that. And I think that we see medicinal benefits just even with our employees here on site. And we have people reach out on Instagram, on social platforms, and they email, and they tell us, thank you for this strain, or we really wish you had more of this available. And we get a lot of positive feedback, from the benefits that these people are seeing. So that's really exciting too, because we want to do what the consumer tells us, right? Like, it's not what I think, it matters what our consumer says. So we really believe that we pivot a lot based on what our consumer response is in retail.
You had mentioned, excuse me, you had mentioned GrowLink and the water reclamation system, but is there any other equipment in your facility that from an operational perspective you couldn't live without?
Yeah, we have our HVAC control system is amazing. The HVAC equipment itself is unbelievable. We really haven't had any problems with it, but our controllability, the way that our set points and how tight the units stay. I would say also we have a megawatt generator, two 500 kW generators that, just in case. We've had power outages here in northern Michigan. It is a little rural, so that has been a savior to us on a few of those bad weather days. So, everything matters here, though. Everything matters on how we are able to grow the plant and grow it successfully. So, we can't have equipment down days. That's can't afford that.
Yeah. What, I guess, did you have a moment where you suffered a power outage and then you kind of had to scramble, or was that something that you had the foresight of, like, no, we need generators because it's inevitable. We're in the north. We're going to lose power at some point?
Yeah, I think early on the conversation was we need to have a generator, and we're lucky we ordered it when we did, because the lead time was, it took us a year for us from ordering it to having it installed. So we did have a few outages, luckily only 4 to 6 hours, but now we sleep good at night.
I do like the educational emphasis that you have, particularly some of the content that you keep on your websites. Why is it important to you to help make sure that you have an educated consumer rather than just somebody that's stopping in and kind of just looking around?
Yeah, I think we're still in the early stages of cannabis, so there isn't that comfortability from our consumers. And if you can get the soccer mom, the average Joe, the person that maybe has not consumed previously, to feel like it's okay, that it's normalized to get into the cannabis scene, or to try for anxiety or sleep or whatever, that's really our goal. We want more people to have that experience, and a positive one. And if we can get to that point, I think that it only helps our brand, because we're going to try to push them towards our products, our brands, and so I really think that getting the consumer more educated is going to only benefit the industry long term.
How would you describe the current state of Michigan's market?
I would say it's very volatile. We're getting to right now, the time of year is the prices will start to come back up. It'll be happy times for everybody, right? But there's a lot of supply. The demand is high. We are very fortunate, I would say, because of how we are positioned in the Midwest, with Wisconsin not being legal, Minnesota just coming online beginning of next year, Ohio still kind of limited, Illinois high pricing, and then Indiana not really available whatsoever. So Michigan benefits a lot from the surrounding states, and so I feel like the supply that we have is okay today. But if we have growth in cannabis, in legalization around states around us, that the supply that we have might be detrimental to the success of Michigan's future.
Do you have any fears over Wisconsin, for example, going legal?
Well, I know they've put some legislation forward, but then they wanted to control retail in the state, and so the way that it looks like the leadership there is the progress will take some time. But I think that we want national legalization. We want everybody to have the same access to if you want to call it medicine or recreational cannabis. So I think it only strengthens the cannabis industry. And I'm a free market guy too, so the strong will survive. People that run their businesses the right way, the quality of product, those types of things. We want the best product, the best operators, the best people in the space.
It'll take some time. That is the nicest I've heard anyone describe the current state of cannabis in Wisconsin. So of your products, do you have one in particular that you're the most proud of?
Well, we're very simple. I had my O-line coach in Jacksonville said to us one time, if you try to block two guys, you're going to block zero. And to me, that says, we need to be narrowly focused on who we want to be. So we've always been a flower producer from day one. And because we've narrowed our focus on one thing, it has really made us be successful in this, in the quality of our product. And so we really haven't had to be in concentrates or edibles or really focus on anything else. And I think it's positioned us well in this space. So really, this year we just did a brand collab for pre-rolls. It's with a brand called Road Trip. Great. They're actually local here to us, and it's a great brand. They have a really nice market share in the state of Michigan. I definitely would talk to those guys. Nate is awesome there. But that has also pushed our brand a little bit too. It's Road Trip times Freedom Green. And so it's little stuff like that has helped push our brand, that will help us get kind of notarized over time. We've been mostly bulk sellers over the last 4 years. I did just work on some jar designs, and we just got some prepackaged stuff in actually this last week. So we're going to work on small releasing of some Freedom Green branded product, and hopefully there's a positive response to it. But I never wanted to put our product in a package that I didn't feel like it was the best. And now that we are getting to that point where I feel comfortable doing it, I'm excited to see what the response is from the consumer in our pre-pack state.
Do you have any interest in becoming more vertically integrated? Do you have interest in pursuing the dispensary side of the business?
To be honest, I'm going to stay in my lane. I think okay. I like being this operator. I'm a manufacturer. I like this mindset. I feel like we can operate as efficient or more efficient than anybody out there. So my expansion plan would be to add more canopy, and then just continue. We have demand for doubling of what we currently produce. So I really just want to stay where we're at, and maybe we partner with people that are good in their perspective, retail or processing, extraction in the future. But right now, we're gonna block one.
I do like the expression, if you try blocking two, you're going to block zero, because I have a colleague, and one of his favorite things to emphasize is blocking and tackling. When it comes to anything business related, he's like, if you don't have blocking and tackling, you have nothing.
Right. Simple.
Keep it simple. So you mentioned potential expansion efforts. Is it relatively easy to expand in Michigan, or are there a lot of regulatory hurdles?
So locally where we're at, it would be fair. It's fairly easy for us to expand. We have land on the backside of our property. We've already pre-planned for it when we build the first time. So we have plumbing, electrical, utilities are all behind our property, are ready to go. So it's just really a matter of us kind of moving forward, getting our plans approved locally to our local village, and then just adding licenses to that addition in the facility. So Michigan has made it fairly easy for expansion if you're on the same site. So it should really be a quick process for us.
Oh, okay. So it's easier if you're on the same site, but if you want to have a separate location, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it would take a little bit more time for us.
Okay. One thing I was curious about, so you played with the Jaguars, Seahawks, and Chiefs, and yet you're a Packer fan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go Pack, go.
Sorry, I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin, so I saw that and just immediately gravitated to that. Anything that your career in the NFL helped prepare you for a career in cannabis?
I think not so much the NFL specifically, but what it took to get to that point. When I was very focused on who I wanted to be as a young kid. When I was 10 years old, I knew I wanted to play in the NFL. And I knew that I was going to have to sacrifice and do things differently than most people if I wanted to get there. And so it was not going to the parties in high school. It was doing better in school. It was getting a good degree in college. I have an engineering degree from Western Michigan University. It's not going out in college. It's making the sacrifices and doing the things to get to where you want to be. My dad always used to say, well, who do you want to be? Right? It's cool. You played a great game. That's great. You're working hard. That's great. But who do you want to be? And what's it going to take for you to get there? And so that process, from 10 years old to 25, that has it made me who I am today, and it made me understand what it would take for us to be successful in this industry. It's sacrifice. What are you willing to give up? And I've always said I have a great family. I have a wife. I have 5 kids, and I always said I would never sacrifice success for my family, right? And this business hasn't done that, but I've had to make some sacrifices. I've been here at 2 a.m. in the morning working on an HVAC unit to make sure that it was up and running and good to go. I've done the things over the last 3.5 years to put us in position to be successful. And I think you learn that over time in high school sports, college sports, professional sports. And so really it's been a culmination of a lot of different things that have put me in position to be successful here.
Do you keep in touch with any of your former colleagues or teammates, and how do they feel about your new career in cannabis?
Yeah, I mean, I keep in touch with guys from high school, college, professionally. Everybody's like, man, it's so cool. Everybody says that, man, you're growing weed. That's cool. But it has also been a ton of work. And it's the same thing with people saying, wow, it's amazing you're in the NFL, but you don't realize how much work it took for us to get here. But it's definitely fulfilling. I say that we've failed a lot, but they're failures for us to learn, and the failures have been positive for us to be successful. And we've learned from them and been able to implement positive change for us to be successful because of them.
Because you have an engineering degree, and one thing that I've noticed with engineers previously is that sometimes there's scope creep can be an issue because nothing is ever perfect enough. So how do you reconcile what you want to do as an engineer with what you want to do as a business owner, to make sure that, you're getting it as right as you want, but still moving the business forward?
Yeah, I would say that's like paralyzed by perfection, right? Mm-hmm. It's like making everything. I look at every aspect of every process and I'm like, can we be better? Can we be better? What else can we do? But also take a step back and go, am I pushing my people too hard? Like, what's realistic for them to actually do? And being able to make a determination of getting them to perform to their best abilities, but also not to overwork them, because that, obviously employee morale is important as well for the success of your business. So it's like finding that middle ground is super, super valuable. And it's like letting them know, hey, I appreciate you. Hey, you guys killed it today. Here's a pre-roll. Here's an eighth. For example, yesterday, our cultivation team had a great week. So they got their work done by noon, and I'm like, just go home, enjoy the weekend. We work 4/10, so we work a 5:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. shift. So for them to be to get off at noon on a Thursday, that's a nice longer weekend for them to be with their families. And I know it's a 7-day-a-week deal, in farming, but I've wanted to create the environment where it's just like a regular job. I don't want to put too much stress on other people's lives or families where they don't like what they're doing, because it is work. It's a lot of work to do what we do.
How did you make the decision to go to 410s?
So where we are locationally, a lot of people travel for work. So it's a 30-minute drive. It's a 45-minute drive. So that was the first factor. Cost of living. It's increasingly more expensive to live. Food, gas, rent, all that stuff. So taking that into consideration, I'm like, well, let's create a 4-day work week. Let's get the most out of our people in 4 days and then give them a break. And it's been a really, really positive response since we did that. I think we've been doing that for, 18 months, maybe even 2 years already. So,
okay. No, there's a tremendous push for that work-life balance. And I'm always kind of curious to, I like to hear about it in theory, but I always like to hear about how it's working in practice.
Yeah, no, I know that there's a lot of pressure because we have to get a lot done in a day, right? Because you don't have a Friday, so you need to get the work done on a Monday and then Tuesday. Because if you don't get it done, it gets pushed back to the following week. And I like to say in cannabis, if you miss a day, it affects you 120 days down the road, because that's pretty much the life cycle of clone to veg to flower to harvest to dry cure to sell. So it is a huge emphasis on getting our jobs done in the time that is allotted. So it is maybe a higher stress, higher pressure environment during those 4 days, but also you're saving one trip. We have a guy that drives an hour every day. We save one trip every day. That's over a year. How many tanks of gas does that save him and his family?
Oh yeah, no, that cost certainly adds up. One thing I noticed is that you're fairly outspoken online. Like it seems like you like to post, particularly on LinkedIn, about ways that the cannabis industry can improve itself. What motivated you to kind of put yourself out there to try and make some real change?
So there's a guy that I met not even a year ago. His name's William McKenzie, and he owns an outdoor farm here in Michigan. He's fairly active on LinkedIn as well, and just listening to what he has to say. Like I know maybe I have some controversial topics, but I think it's important to have open dialogue about that type of stuff and to hear what other people have to say and other people's opinions, because my opinion isn't always right, and that's me not having ego. That's me wanting to learn from people in the space, and there's a ton of legacy folks out there, people that have been doing this for 40 years. And I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything. So it's about kind of getting out there, creating maybe a stirring in the pot a little bit, but also it's a great way for networking and meeting new people and growing my network so then I can learn and can understand, better about the industry.
Do you have just like a specific example of where you actually learned something from when you were stirring the pot, I guess?
Well, I made a controversial post, I think it was last week, about outdoor flower versus indoor flower. And there's a lot of pushback from people who live out in California where they're able to grow more favorable environments. And I just haven't had the experience to see the flower in a climate where you're able to produce quality at an outdoor level. And so, it really was to see what the response would be. But honestly, I haven't seen quality flower come from an outdoor grow that I was like, oh, I would smoke that. So it was cool to see. I know there was a lot of negative response to it, but it was cool to see. It's something that I'm willing to experience and not close my mind to just because I'm an indoor grower.
No, I thought that was interesting as well. Like one thing I do like about the cannabis industry, and maybe you agree, is that there seems to be a very collaborative effort where everyone kind of is trying to learn from one another to advance the industry forward. Is that what you've experienced?
Yeah, I think it's grown a lot over the last few years. It used to be very like a closed community. I felt like because there was a lot of like everybody has their proprietary this, proprietary that, but I feel like communities have really been created, and it is tight. I mean, gosh, it's crazy how this person knows this person who's met this person who knows this person. And it's very, very small. So I think it's really grown in that aspect of teaching and learning and creating more of a community than, well, I know this, I'm not going to tell anybody type thing.
You had mentioned how cannabis fills that competitive need. What do you do to fill your athletic need?
Well, I play hockey up here in Traverse City. So I grew up playing hockey. That was probably my second sport behind football. And so when we moved up here, I started going to the gym, and there's a gym inside of a hockey rink, and kind of met some guys there, started playing. So in the wintertime, I skate twice a week, and then all year round, I skate every Wednesday morning. So that's kind of like my release to kind of get a sweat in, compete, but also have fun. And it's a great networking opportunity as well. I've met a lot of good friends, business owners, people that have helped me since living here. So it's fun, man. It's super fun to go out and to still compete, because you'll never feel that again. I'll never be able to feel that feeling that I did when I was crushing people on the field, tackling a guy in the backfield or blocking somebody. It's just it's hard to replace. So it's nice to be able to have a little bit of that.
What are your expectations, if you have any, if you had to predict federal legalization for the United States? What would you say?
So obviously I want us to get there, but I think what needs to happen first is infrastructure needs to be built in all of the states before we go fully legal, because there has to be order, right? So Michigan has an infrastructure. We've been operating for 5 years now, but you have a state like Wisconsin, and you go federally legal and open everything up. What does that look like without a regulatory agency, without compliance standards, without the infrastructure for them to be successful? So personally, I would like for the states to opt in and get online and build that infrastructure before we go full federally legal. But I think it would be great for us to get safe banking, expunging, wrongful people in jail for cannabis consumption. And so I think there are steps we can take to move the industry forward. But full legalization, I just feel like we need a better infrastructure as a nation before we just say, here you go, you're federally legal.
No, I think that's a really good point, where it would be kind of anarchistic if all of a sudden everything opened up and it was just a whole Wild West in some of these states where there is no infrastructure. That's a really good point.
Yeah. So I'm pro cannabis. I'm pro the growth of the industry. I want people to have better availability for banking loans. 280E has got to go. Help us operate better as businesses. Let us use cost of goods that we're able to realize to help our businesses. So there's a lot of good benefits that safe banking will give us. But longer term, we need to get the infrastructure in place. Otherwise, it will be anarchy 100%. It will be, how will you regulate? It's kind of like when New York opened up. They're just like, all right, we're legal, but there was nothing. There was no infrastructure, right? Mm-hmm. And then all these smoke shops opened up and dispensaries, and it was just like, what's going on here? And now they're coming back and going, okay, now we need to regulate it, at least have some type of plan in place. So it's already proven that without an infrastructure, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, now they're playing whack-a-mole, trying to act against the illicit market.
Exactly.
Well, before we get out of here, is there anything else that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience knows about yourself or your work at Freedom Green?
I would say, I say this all the time, we're just regular people growing weed. We want to legitimize the space, legitimize the industry. We're a real business, we're real people, and we have a real product. And I feel like that sometimes gets misconstrued in the industry, where it's like, oh, you're growing weed, or you're pot smokers, or it's just a negative connotation. But we are trying to provide value to our consumers. We're trying to provide the best quality product that we can, and we work really hard doing it. So getting people to realize and understand where we are as an industry and where we're moving forward, I think that is super important, and will bring more people into cannabis and will strengthen the industry long term.
Excellent. Well, Drew, thank you very much for taking the time today, man. I really do appreciate it.
No, it was great. I had an awesome time.
Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter and make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. For Drew Nowak, founder of Freedom Green, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. We'll see you next week.